right, I want to welcome you back into another episode of the Idea Collision. I've been off for a week with Memorial Day last week. I didn't figure too many people grilling were going to be watching my podcast. So we're back in after a little break, and we are going to be continuing our discussion of contradictions, and specifically the contradictions of the younger generations. I want to make sure that I kind of say this every time, and I do it because I want it to be emphasized, especially for those who might be joining me for a first time, that when I say the younger two generations, I mean the two following mine, which makes it sound like, I'm just a typical old person criticizing people who are younger, but I'm a Gen Xer, born in the 70s, and so that means we're talking a lot about the millennials and Gen Z with what they, I guess, can call, they've run out of letters in the English alphabet, so now they're going to switch to the Greek alphabet and start over, and they call it Gen Alpha, being the youngers, the really youngers, and they don't really have any trends to speak of yet. So the reason I'm not talking about my own contradictions is for a number of reasons we've discussed. One is the younger you are, the more likely you are to change. And it's not that my generations are without contradictions. We've discussed some of those, and we have plenty of our own. But younger generations are more likely to make big changes, right? And the reason is because the more entrenched a belief is, or an idea, or whatever the thing is in your life, the older you are, the longer you've had it, and it's more a part of your identity. So with an idea, an idea being a part of your identity for a long period of time, you have to give up yourself to change it. You have to say, I personally am wrong. It's not just, if you're younger, it's something you were taught. It's something someone instilled with you. You can kind of, you're still in this exploring stage where you're saying, I don't really agree with that person. So it's not really giving up yourself. So it's easier to do. So we see these types of big idea changes in younger people. The older you get, the more entrenched they are, and so it's harder for people to do that. And by my age, you're really attached to those. So that's the first, I would say, the first thing. The second thing is just basically a practical observation of humanity and of generations, is that the reason I'm doing this is the younger that you are, the more likely you are to be consuming material this way through a podcast. There's not too many baby boomers on podcasts, or even Gen Xers would be more likely, but mostly it's millennials and Gen Z that consume information this way. So it makes sense to talk to those people through the media platform that they like. So that's why we're talking to millennials, or about millennials and Gen Z. So I want to go back to the discussion of contradictions, and some people link that to hypocrisy. They're not necessarily connected, but they're just contradictions. Things that we say, maybe we don't do. It doesn't have to be from a malicious standpoint, which would be hypocrisy, but it's just, we've started doing things this way, and then in a different area of life, I have a different idea, and they don't always mesh. And I want to look at two words that you'll see talked about a lot when we talk about the younger two generations. They're very into these words. And the first one is substance. All right, a very big word for millennials and for Gen Z. That's a good word. Substance. They like things of substance. And to look at their value of substance, we have to look at what they're reacting to, which would be my generation and the previous generations. So millennials are children of probably the later the later baby boomers, very early Gen Xers, and Gen Z are pretty exclusively kids of Gen Xers, myself, our generation. And so we have to look at what they're reacting to get an idea. So my generation, we called the MTV generation, and we'll talk about MTV in just a second. But if it was shiny, we were kind of like raccoons. If it was shiny, we liked it. And that was the way to our heart was through something shiny. We were very much about the packaging of things. The more gaudy it was, the bigger, the flashier. That's what we liked. And to a lot of people that had no substance, if you were a child of that and you saw that, you might have a reaction to it. It might have felt fake to you. So a lot of them want things of substance. Okay, so that's that generation. Dire Straits did a song that was supposed to criticize this. There's a number of songs actually, but Dire Straits was a song that was supposed to criticize this, and ended up being kind of one of the songs that was an anthem for the 80s in terms of this materialism or consumerism, whatever they call it, but called Money for Nothing. And it was in the line is I want my MTV and all the stuff that money can get you, and people were like, yeah, I like that. It was supposed to critique us, but we were apparently too lost in our gaudiness to the critique was lost on us. So we kind of like, yes, that's a great idea. Another interesting trend to look at, and this more would go to the baby boomers, but another trend has been to notice how many country clubs are dying or are on sale for cheap or wanting somebody to come in and purchase them. I remember working in the 90s, and I just remember discussions, and I remember Tiger Woods becoming famous as a golfer during my time in college. And he was like a 17-year-old kid, and he was good. And there was this controversy in the very, very early 90s still, which is surprising that we had to have this controversy in the 90s, but about whether the best black or best golfer who was black was going to be allowed in some country clubs. And there were country clubs that were like, I don't know, we've had this rule in place for a long time. It's a white-only club. And it's like, yeah, but so you're telling me that the best golfer in the world can't come into your club. And so slowly and surely, like, he became this impetus for change in a lot of things. And the change was slow, and I don't know if that's a part of the decline, but it looked contradictory to them. They didn't like this idea. So it was so out of touch with culture, what culture, the rest of culture was, but they were so far behind, not just in the racial aspect. That was a part of it. It was a significant part of it, but they were just out of touch with reality, period. And the idea of country clubs in and of themselves, it was such a status thing. Where you have all these people with massive loads of money and didn't know what to do with it, and so they were trying to feel, I don't know, not justified, but significant in their wealth, and wanting something to do with it that made them feel, fulfilled or whatever it was. I'm not sure what feeling it was. It's really hard to define. But so they started buying things that would make them, attempt to attain this feeling that they're hoping for. So they're buying yachts, and what can we do that makes us, we're in the top 1%. We want to feel like we're in the top 1%. We'll do something that's only top 1%, and that's, we'll get a club together, and this goes back generations and generations. We'll be in a country club where only we can go, and we can sit around and talk about how elite we are. And or whatever else goes behind those doors, I don't know. I will never know. So they wanted to have this feeling of significance, and so the younger generations have not really cared about that. There's no substance to it. So all of a sudden, as those people die off or too old to go golfing, it's because it's not that young people don't like golf. I personally hate golf, but um, but young millennials like golf. They'll go rent some, or pay for whatever, go and rent some equipment, do whatever, and they'll go and they'll spend an afternoon golfing, and then they're done. They don't want to go inside and have the fancy sandwiches. That they just don't want to pay for that. They don't want to be a part of that. They just want to go around the golf course and leave. So it's just this out of touch thing. It was a lack of substance. So these are the older people's toys, and my generation's toys look different. And so a related word then that you'll hear a lot is, and we're probably going to spend more time talking about this word, but they're connected, is the word authentic or authenticity. And now, when we talk about authenticity, and if you Google authenticity, you're going to see, a reference likely to millennials, maybe Gen Z a little less, but millennials big on this word. And a lot of the people link their love of authenticity to their idealism as young people. But I don't think they're connected, because young people have always been idealistic. Gen X was idealistic. Baby boomers, go back and look at the flower power and the rebellion of everything. That was idealism. It's the ideals change from generation to generation, but young people are always idealistic, and the reason for that is because it's not that they become contradictory. It's not the contradiction or hypocrisy to saying, well, you were idealistic when you were young, why aren't you now? A lot of that has to do with the fact that idealism is what the world would be if I could make it a perfect world. And then you realize that you can't. As you age, you learn the math of the situation, and you see why it's not practical, and that's when you start to change your ideals. That has nothing to do with authenticity. Authenticity as a thing now, specifically now in these younger generations, I want to look at why, maybe a little bit, but and actually even more than that, focus on the contradiction within themselves. So why, perhaps, I don't know, it has to do with seeing and growing up with the pretentiousness of their parents, my generation and the older generations. And, they saw how we were in public and how we were in private. And if you grew up, a lot of times I like to throw in the religious examples of this, because to me this is one of the downfalls when you see a growing irreligious world, an unchurched world, as they say. A lot of that has to do with the contradictions and hypocrisy of our generation as Christians. And and I do this. I'm guilty of this. Being one way, and I'm a preacher, so you're one way, even in the car on the way to church. Your kids are yelling, whatever, and you're trying to calm down, and you're getting irate, and then you pull into the parking lot, and everyone's upset with each other, and what do? We get out and we put on our church face and we walk in, and it's just not authentic, and they see this, and they're like, these are two different worlds, and they hate that. They want something, they crave something that looks authentic. So that's the cause of, or one of the causes, is seeing these two different worlds, what authentic is. It's not that, to me, I don't think it's that authenticity has changed or desires changed. I think a lot of it is just that the technology has changed. If you Google millennials and authenticity, those words, you are likely to come up with a website that is discussing brands. It's discussing, a lot of it is discussing how companies and product can position their products to be attractive to millennials and Gen Z consumers. and which is kind of funny because it's like there's a story that I heard. I remember hearing. It's an anecdote. It's not a story, but there's two politicians, an old guy and a young guy who's just won an election. He's going into Congress or whatever for the first time, and so he attaches himself to this older, successful politician, long-time career politician, and he asks, what is the secret? That was such a hard election, my first one. I finally won, and he's like, what's the secret to staying? How do you do that? And the old politician, he says, well, really, it's about you've got to be genuine with people. And as soon as you can learn how to fake that, you're going to have a long career here. So, and that's a lot. Here's how to position your product or your company to be appealing to people who want authenticity. Well, that's essentially what's happening is learning how to be fake. And so this frustration is all over the internet because no one seems to know how to define authenticity. And so by default, it ends up going to, well, you have to support all of these particular agendas. And so people end up supporting things that they don't even believe in. And they don't believe in it. And here's how you can see. And we're seeing this really in real time in the news around you if you pay attention to the news. And that is that, okay, so the company says they do some promotional advertising or whatever it is, and they throw agenda stuff in their advertising. Well, what's the next thing that happens? Now all of a sudden, they learn that there's a group of people that really don't like that advertisement. They really don't like that thing, that change, that whatever. There's a reaction to it. And it doesn't make a difference if you start here and go this way or start here and go that way. There's this positioning. I'm going to position myself towards this thing because we should do this. And then all of a sudden they get resistance. And what do? Immediately someone gets fired. Oh, we don't know what happened. That guy was rogue and this advertising campaign, we don't know what happened. So then there's retractions, there's apologies, and then there'll be advertising of some sort of positioning that looks exactly opposite. Within a 2-week span, you'll see, we were positioning to do this, and now the advertisement will look like they're, setting up to try to impress the exact opposite group of people. Well, this is the definition of not being authentic. But the first one was there to try to show how authentic they are. Well, that means that they've never been authentic if they'll make that change that quick. And if we will make a change that quick, then it's obvious that there's nothing authentic. There's nothing of substance. If you have something of substance, it doesn't move, right? If you have something that's, if you have a beach ball, it moves pretty easy. You just tap it and it's gone. Try doing that with a bowling ball, right? There's a lot of substance in a bowling ball. It doesn't move that easy. So if you have real substance, you don't move that quick from one, side of the pendulum to another in that short time span because it's like, no, these are real values to me. I'm not going to change. I don't care. So there's no substance in a lot of the things that they're pushing because it's all about positioning. It's about trying to pretend you're genuine. So they have really what they have is an ideal of authenticity. What young people have is this idea that they would like to be authentic. The idea of authenticity appeals to them, but it's not really. It's not really something that they exude. Really, what's happened is that the technology has changed. The unauthenticity really is the same, and the character that of not being genuine is the same in all generations because it's not a generational problem. Really, it's a human problem. Authenticity is a human problem, or lack thereof. Not a generational one. It's not something we can just say, oh, they're just, these young generations, they're just so unauthentic. Now, they're humans, and so they're unauthentic. We all put on the face. The technology has changed. And so where they perform their camouflage is on social media. With us, we were camouflaged with the products we bought and dressed things up and tried, we wore ourselves literally, whatever it was that we were trying to impress people with, we literally wore it. They wear it out on Facebook and on whatever, the younger you are, the different platforms you're on. So my son came home. Now there's a new one. There's too many of them, and I don't like any of them. But one called Be Real, which is supposed to kind of make you look more real because it's supposed to be more in real time. It gives you a shorter time span to make your posts, and so therefore I think the theory is that you can't spend 45 minutes positioning yourself to, oh, look at how great my life is or whatever. But I just call it Be Fake Quicker is my name, my moniker for this app, because I'm watching my son or whoever in our house. He's the one I noticed doing it, but there's I think they all do it. But he's like doing something and taking a picture. I'm like, you weren't doing that 5 minutes ago. All of a sudden, you're just doing this. Like you're just being fake quicker, and it's just the technology is different from one generation. In I think MIT did a study. It was primarily around Facebook, but it applies, and in their discussion of it and in their statistics, I said, listen, this applies to different platforms. But it was because the Facebook was amongst the first. I mean, there was MySpace, but that was not really done well. Facebook came along and kind of perfected unauthenticity. And so they studied, and because it was early, there's more statistics available of the time span. But they looked at millennials. So those who were 10 years old to 24 years old, if I remember correctly, and it was those age groups, if you were in those age groups from 2000 to 2007. So basically just millennials. And they said, then they did another comparison from 2007 to 2017. So a 7-year period followed by a 10-year period. It's not exactly the same, but what they said is, though, in that first 7-year period, really social media and Facebook and stuff wasn't really off the ground. I know it was invented in 2004, but it was still getting going. It wasn't what it is now and what it became in that second period. And they said those who, or in those years, suicide and depression was very stable in that age group. It didn't change from 2000 to 2007. But from 2007 on, or in that next 10-year period, as you not adding just that social media, but there's other social medias coming along and various things. That was the main one. Suicide jumps 57%. 57%. Well, that's not, and to say that's consistent, and it's been consistent since then. Those are just when they did that study, but it's been consistent since then. This growth and this problem of depression and various things, as it just all of a sudden as social media has jumped. There's an undeniable link between social media and so what is it? Well, it's obvious what it is. It's the comparison. Paul writes, he says, it's foolish to compare yourselves by yourselves. It's foolish. And I think when we look at that statement, we first immediately jump to the obvious side, those who, and that's true, those who view themselves as superior. I'm better than you. Well, that's foolish. That's stupid, right? It goes back to the old thing. Listen, there's always going to be someone better, bigger, stronger, whatever the thing is, faster. There's always someone more than you at whatever it is. And for you to compare yourself and think that you're the best, that's dumb. You're going to find that your idea of yourself is going to get crushed. And that's the first way that we think of it, and obviously that's foolishness. But it is perhaps more foolish to judge yourself as inferior. And I say the foolishness in that is in the effects that it's going to have on you, as constantly comparing yourself and saying, I'm inferior, they're better than me. And Facebook is where that happens. Facebook is where primarily people go to try to make their own lives feel better. It's their country club. I have this. I want to establish this feeling, and it's just that the technology has changed. They're not paying massive dues to go into a building on a golf course and have sandwiches, and fancy cheese, but they're doing the same thing. They're trying to foster this idea of substance. They're being fake, in real time, and so this tendency underneath it, you can't help. You know who you are, right? You know who you are at home when you're not on Facebook, and then you're trying to manufacture an image. And not only that, but then you're on there looking at other people who are probably doing the same thing, and you're like, oh, they're so perfect. Oh, their life is so wonderful. Oh, they're on vacation. How much in debt are they on for their vacation? Oh, they got a new car. How much are they in debt for their new car? And all these things that they're trying to do to impress you, and you're trying to impress them, and everybody's trying to impress each other with how great their life is, and probably everybody's, not that when they're not on the thing. So it's all superficial. Their life is completely superficial. And so there's this deficit. In a future podcast, because these run long, a little bit longer than I'd like, but we're going to address how they deal with this feeling of deficit specifically, what they're doing other than Facebook. But this is all very true of those who feel inferior. I think mostly have the depressive thoughts, the self-loathing that comes from the comparison. This morning, I close kind of here, but this morning, because I want to give life application, my wife got up and there was a discussion on Facebook. And those appeal to me. And she woke me up out of a sound sleep. Oh, there's a discussion on Facebook. Boom! Immediately, I'm awake. Really? What was it? There's a controversy, and it was over some religious topic. Immediately, I was up and I was forming all of my, because I know the topic. I won't even discuss it, but I know all of the arguments that this side uses, and I wanted to just boom. I'm gonna drop my opinions, because my opinions it's how I, as an older person, compare myself to other people. It's different, right? It's how I position myself, and I wanted to just jump in, because that's what I used to do. I don't really do that much. I'm hardly on Facebook, and I feel better, by the way. And I stopped myself, and this is what I want to give you, is to give yourself liberty from social media. You don't have to. And that's the first thing I said to myself. I don't have to. I'm not required to share my opinions. Who cares? They don't care about my opinion. They already have their opinion. So we're just going to argue, and these are friends, and now we're just not going to be friends. I could ruin relationships and friendships over my opinion. I don't have to. So in whatever way that you feel you have to compare yourself or be better or be smarter or be more successful, whatever the thing is that you want to go on social media and prove and get these feelings of. Give yourself liberty from those feelings. Allow yourself to be free. I don't have to. I'm not required to take a picture of myself doing some really awesome thing that I really don't ever do. Just to impress people. I don't have to impress people. I'm free from that. So that would be my suggestion for you this week, to find those moments where those pop up and you want to jump on and do whatever it is that to foster those feelings. Give yourself freedom from those and encourage others to make those same choices. And if you like this video, if this helps you at all, please share it and subscribe and try to give these thoughts that give us practical things to do and improve our lives and to improve our emotional states, our mental states, and ultimately, most importantly, our spiritual state, and to improve our week. So go out there and have a good week.